So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome, everybody, to So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. For those of you in the United States, happy almost Thanksgiving. We decided to do today's show about Thanksgiving, and we're going to demonstrate so many Thanksgiving dishes. You know, a lot of people think of Thanksgiving and they think of a lot of meat-based dishes, but my friend Rin Berry, who was the historical advisor to the Vegetarian Resource Group, to the North American Vegetarian Society, has written about this, and he has said that at the first Thanksgiving, no dead turkeys were served. According to his research, the first Thanksgiving was primarily plant-based. There may have been a little bit of wild game, but it was primarily plant-based, according to Rin Berry. And so if you have a plant-based Thanksgiving this year, you can tell your friends you're eating a traditional Thanksgiving. So Many Cooks in the Kitchen is a group of Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee. We know a lot about food, plant-based food, and we also know about plant-based nutrition, and we enjoy sharing. So we've done a number of shows. I think we've been doing it since May, now we're at November, and today it's about Thanksgiving. And again, my name is Dilip Barman. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. And don't let me get away with the show without telling you more about what just happened 2 hours ago in terms of the Thanksgiving that I put on. It's the country's biggest vegetarian Thanksgiving, all vegan. And I want to tell folks who may be watching who are local, who are interested. So I'm going to demonstrate today, we're all going to demonstrate, there's 8 of us, some of our favorite dishes for Thanksgiving. My good friend Brenda Davis, she's an outstanding nutritionist. She's an RD. She has quite a few books. She has a new book that's coming out soon about cooking, about being plant-based with children. She's co-writing it with a pediatrician. So that book is due out soon, and we should post the link to that. So my good friend Brenda Davis has included some information about nutrition and some ideas of how to serve healthy Thanksgiving, how to work on portion control. So we have actually 2 additions to our document. You'll see our document, which we will share the link to. So I'm going to be talking about seitan, and it's one of my signature dishes. So I created this dish called lime marinated jerk seitan, and it was really exciting. About 15 years ago or so, I was in Colorado and I was filmed, and we'll post the link to Delectable Planet, and you can see me making this dish. There's one caveat, is I made the dish before I was a Food for Life instructor, and I didn't learn how easy it is to cook without oil. So watch the video that I will share if you'd like, but omit the oil. I'm going to show you how to do this without any additional oil. So what is seitan? Seitan is boiled wheat gluten. You take some wheat gluten, that's the protein of wheat. You remove all the starches, and then it's what gives bread its elasticity. I've made it from scratch, and in the future we may have a show talking about how to make seitan, but today I'm using existing seitan. So seitan, again, is wheat gluten, and you add different flavors, maybe some soy sauce, maybe some garlic, some ginger. Its pluses are it's high in protein, it's low in fat, and for those who are interested in limiting carbohydrates, which we don't necessarily recommend, we recommend talking to your healthcare provider to know what's right for you. But what we do suggest is if you eat whole food plant-based, watch the fat, but enjoy the carbohydrates, then you should do well, but talk to your healthcare provider. But anyhow, seitan is low in carbohydrates. It also is great with lots of different minerals like selenium, iron, copper, potassium, and phosphorus. Now, there are some negatives. Seitan is a wheat product, and it's a common allergen. So some people can't eat wheat, so you will not want to use seitan with them. It's high in sodium. I like to try to eat foods that have a 1-to-3 or better ratio, minimal sodium, maximal potassium. And so seitan is not a good choice for that. It tends to be high in sodium. It's also low in fiber, and it is a partially processed food. So we recommend eating foods that are minimally processed. Seitan is partially processed, so you don't want to eat it all of the time, okay? But it's a tasty food. It has a nice texture. I like it in spite of the fact that it kind of turns out brown, and some people think that it resembles meat. I like it in spite of that. So let me show you what you can find in the marketplace. There's a variety of brands. So here's one. You can get them cubed. So here's some cubed seitan. And then you can get, this is in chunks. I like this brand, Upton's Natural. So you can see it's in chunks. I haven't opened them all up, but I have opened one that I'll be cooking with in a moment. You can get a chorizo seitan, and I like this. It has a nice spice to it. It's a crumble. It goes great, for example, in lasagna. You can crumble it into a lasagna. It's quite nice. There's a North Carolina brand. I mentioned I'm in North Carolina called No Evil Foods. And I just opened this. I like their packaging. It's cardboard. And I just slid it open just so we can see. It's kind of a lighter brown color. I don't eat vegan barbecue at all, but it looks a little bit like barbecue, I guess. So they have a variety of versions of their seitan. And then I got some seitan from this brand called Sweet Earth, which is what I'll be working with. Okay, and this is strips. So what I've done for my recipe is I've taken my seitan and I've put it in a bowl. Okay, so that is seitan. And now I'm going to marinate it. Okay, so my marinade is simply fresh squeezed lime juice. So I have the juice of 1 lime, and I'll put that in there. And what I'll do is I'll occasionally mix it, or I can put some extra lime, which I'll go ahead and do. I have some lime juice, so I'll go ahead and put a little bit more. Lime adds a nice tart and tang to it. So there's my marinade. And the other thing I'm going to add to my marinade is I'm going to add some, I'm going to add big chunks. I'm sorry, I'm going to add the diced garlic. So I'm going to put some garlic in. Okay. And let me grab a spoon. So I'm going to simply mix it all together. And that's it. So if you think about Thanksgiving and you're making a side dish, so far it's pretty easy. I opened a package of seitan, or I made it from scratch. Making it isn't that difficult. And I'm just letting it sit in some lime juice and some garlic. Okay. And then the next step is what I'm going to do is I have to decide whether I'm going to cook it on a pan or air fry it. More and more people have air fryers. Many of us don't. I love my air fryer. My air fryer looks like a toaster oven. It doubles as a toaster. So it comes with a tray, which looks like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my seitan on the tray, and I'm going to air fry it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 5 minutes or so. And then if you want, you can turn the temperature up to 425 for half a minute, 30 seconds or so to get it even more crispy. And the process is pretty easy. So pretend that this is marinated for a while. The longer, the better. Seitan picks up flavors like tofu does. It's not as porous as tofu. It doesn't hurt to marinate it overnight, but at least for 10, 15 minutes. So what I will do with my clean hands is I'm going to take a piece of the seitan and I'm going to dredge it in some jerk seasoning. Now, jerk seasoning is easy to make. It's a traditional spice mixture that comes from Jamaica. And it has 5 or 6 different ingredients, plus you could add more. It includes chili powder, it includes oregano. And so I like a local brand called Pluto's. Pluto is a brand out of Carborough, North Carolina, which is just a few miles from where I live. And I like that they have a salt-free blend. They have a mild blend, and they have a regular blend as well. So today we're going to use the salt-free blend because the seitan already is fairly high in sodium. And what I'm going to do is it's pretty easy. I'm going to grab a strip, and let's go get a nice close-up. So here's my strip of seitan, and I'm going to put it in the jerk seasoning, and I'm going to roll it. And do you see how it's sticking to the seitan? Pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in my air fryer basket, absolutely no oil, and I'm going to keep going with the next one. So I'm just going to roll it in the mixture. Now, jerk seasoning can be very spicy. So if you make your own, you can control how spicy it is. If you buy a purchased one, you can buy a mild or a hot one, perhaps. So be aware of that. If you have guests who do not like spice, then leave out the hot chili and have a light jerk, a light jerk seasoning. So this is pretty easy. Your plate eventually, if it runs out of seasoning, just put a little bit more seasoning on the plate and keep adding the spice, okay? What else can you do with seitan? You can take chunks of seitan and boil it with vegetables or just add it after some vegetables have boiled and you have a nice stew. You can also make a stir fry. You can air fry some seitan and have some vegetables and maybe make some rice. You can make it in tacos. So you can have some pieces of seitan, put it in tacos or tortillas and have a nice fibrous, even though it's not high in fiber, it has a nice mouthfeel and so forth. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep doing that. So I haven't finished, but you can see what the tray looks like. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to air fry it with no oil for 350 degrees for about 5 minutes. And what I'll also do is I'll put in a couple pieces, thick pieces of garlic or of onion. And the recipe is, we'll share the recipe. So I'll put some garlic. If I'm not being lazy, I'll let this, if I'm being lazy, I'll go ahead and put the garlic in now. If I'm being a little bit more attentive, about halfway through the air fry, I will turn the seitan over and then I will add the garlic. So do it as you wish. I made it last night and I did it the lazy way. I just let it cook. I like this air fryer pan because air circulates nicely and I find I don't generally have to flip food as often as with other foods. You can also cook stovetop. I love my cast iron pan. What I do with cast iron is I keep it seasoned. I'll put just a teeny bit of oil, turn the heat on, and I will rub the oil into it. So there's a trivial amount of oil. And then I can saute the seitan on the pan, medium high, for about 4 to 7 minutes, okay? And that's about it for making it. Let's serve it. So pretend that this is cooked. So I already made a batch last night. Oh, and one other comment. When you put it in jerk seasoning, alternately, you can use nutritional yeast instead, or in addition, if you kind of want a cheesy flavor. I know a lot of people love nutritional yeast. My family does. I don't do it with this dish because to me, it's overusing the ingredient. I like something different and fresh. And I like this combination of flavors because we have the tart from the lime and we have this really nice, savory, spicy jerk seasoning. So this is what you end up with. I made this last night. So here's the jerk seasoning. And here is, I served it with some whole cranberry sauce and maybe garnish your plate with some herbs. The other thing I can do is, I don't know if people are familiar with hemp hearts. I love hemp hearts. They're very tasty and they're good sources of omega-3s. So it's always good to have an excuse to use hemp hearts. So here's some hemp hearts. And what I'll do is I'll just sprinkle a little bit on top, like so. My spoon is a little bit moist. So there's my lime marinated jerk seitan, and let me give it a try. You know, this is one of the best batches I've made in a long time. I tried it last night. I put a lot of the seasoning in, and it is strong. I generally don't like strong flavorings, but in this, the combination of heat and that lime, I put extra lime in, and just the texture of it, I love. So this, I think, is a winning Thanksgiving dish. A package of seitan, which is usually around 8 ounces, is enough for 2 or 3 servings. So with that, enjoy. And I must mention, if you are in the Raleigh-Durham area, or if you're within an hour's drive, we host the country's biggest vegetarian Thanksgiving. And it used to be that we would sell out in less than 2 minutes. So now we have a lottery system. And this year we're going takeout. We used to have people who regularly would come from Canada, California, upstate New York, Florida. I doubt anybody will fly in for takeout this year. So we just opened for reservation requests at noon, so 2 hours ago, and we're open for 48 hours. So if you're nearby and want to come for takeout, please sign up, trianglevegsociety.org, and we'll post a link, and you'll see how to sign up for our Thanksgiving. So with that, I'd love to transfer to my good friend, Suzanne Fellows. She is in Michigan, and she is making a green bean mushroom casserole. Take it away, Suzanne.
Thanks, Philip. Thank you so much. I apologize now because for some reason the dog just started to bark. So welcome to Michigan. And I am really excited just to share a real classic, one of my favorite Thanksgiving dishes from when I was a kid, although way back then it was usually made with Campbell's creamy soup and frozen green beans or canned green beans, which are still great to use. But this recipe today is going to be fresh from really whole foods. I do have, for ease sake, I do have some mushroom broth, and there are some other good products that I'm going to share with you too to make this classic vegan. So what I've already I've done is sauteed the shallots, the garlic, and the mushrooms using a water saute method that Dilip had described before. And the reason for using that method is because you can then make this recipe without any additional oil, which is actually a great way to cook, a bit healthier, heart healthy. So that's a great way to cook. The next step, so far I have sauteed the shallots, the garlic, and the mushrooms. And the next step is to make this a thick, creamy consistency for the casserole dish. So the first thing we're gonna do is just really slowly, we're gonna add about 3 tablespoons of flour, and I've chosen to use gluten-free flour, and I'm just using general gluten-free 1-to-1 ratio of flour, and we're just gonna sprinkle it over the vegetables and stir it in slowly as it's on a low to medium heat. And you wanna just do each tablespoon at a time, and you'll see that it'll just sort of start to melt right into the mushroom and onion mixture. And then you'll add the next tablespoon. So another way to do this would be a traditional roux, and that is some type of oil, usually butter, that's mixed with flour. But in this case, I didn't really want to use any additional oil. So we're just gonna use the juices from the onions and the mushrooms and just sort of blend that all down. And as each one is mixed in, we're gonna add a little bit more flour until we have 3 tablespoons of flour. And if this gets a little dry, like this is starting to do here, you can always add a smidgen of water and then just continue to stir. And once that melts right down, and it does happen really quickly, you just want to be sure that you don't have lumps of flour left. And you can see that that is sort of thick. And then we're going to go ahead and add our vegetable broth. The other thing that you can do, if you didn't want to use a broth and you rather use something that's already creamy, is this product here by Imagine Foods. It's actually a creamy portobello mushroom soup, and so it has that rich portobello flavor, which I chose to use today as well in my mushrooms, but it does not contain any dairy products in it. And it does have some oil. So again, if you are trying to be low oil, then maybe this isn't your best choice, but it is a really easy option. And so we're just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn that up a little bit, and you can see that that's all mixed in. And it does look a little thicker. You can see the soup portion of it starting to form. And then we're gonna go ahead and slowly add in our non-dairy milk. And in this case, I've chosen flax milk. I really like unsweetened flax milk because it doesn't really have a sweet flavor, and it just is really smooth and easy to cook with, easy to bake with. I like the advantage of using flax with really healthy omegas. We'll go ahead and add the rest. And you can see that this has created a really creamy casserole consistency. And I'm just gonna let that cook up a minute and it'll begin to thicken. The wonderful thing about this dish is that green beans are really healthy, low in calories, decent amount of protein, and a lot of fiber. So they are a great vegetable. Mushrooms are also another great vegetable, one of the G bombs. So it's a great thing to eat mushrooms every day. They have a lot of antioxidants and cancer fighting properties. So they're definitely very healthy for you. And you can see this starts to thicken really quickly. then we're going to go ahead and add the green beans. These have been cleaned and trimmed. I did not blanch them. That's another thing that you can do. If you wanted to have this cook a little bit faster, you can go ahead and blanch your green beans, just a couple minutes in boiling water, take them out, strain them, and cool them down right away with some cold water. And that's another way to just to make this cook a little bit faster. Personally, I just like to do as much as I can in one pan. It just makes cooking a little bit easier and the cleanup so much better. And the other thing we're going to do now is if you wanted to add salt and pepper, now would also be the time. Personally, this is really enough salt for me. The mushroom broth that I use does have a bit of sodium, not horrible. It has, for 1 cup, it's 440 milligrams. So I don't necessarily think that this really requires much more salt than that. The crispy onions that I'm using also have a bit of sodium in it. So again, I don't like to add any more salt. I do like to add a bit of pepper to the recipe. And the best part about this is that it's really a classic Thanksgiving dish, a real like American Thanksgiving dish. And so I truly enjoy that about it. Totally reminds me of my childhood and eating the green bean casserole. Another way to do this dish is really to not use any cream at all, and it honestly comes out just as wonderful. So the next step is I'm going to go ahead and add some crispy onions, and this is really an unnecessary step that I actually didn't add to the instructions, but I do this sometimes where I'll add some of the crispy green beans right into the mixture. It makes it a little bit thicker. I have written here 2 cups of green beans. Again, if you are watching your sodium, watching your fat intake, this is something that's really easy to omit, and it really doesn't change the recipe that much. So I'm just going to add a few of these into the recipe, about a half a cup, I would say. I'm going to turn this down, and you can see how it's getting really thick. And it's just a really great classic recipe. As a kid, I don't really think there was probably as many mushrooms in it. I didn't used to love to eat mushrooms. Now I love every kind of mushroom, and especially knowing how healthy they are for us, I really do try to eat them every day. And so just go ahead and saute that for a couple minutes. And then we will pour it into a casserole dish and pop it into the oven for about 20-25 minutes. And in the end, you have a beautiful mushroom casserole. I think they're always so pretty. The onions become so crispy on top. The green beans are delicious with the mushrooms inside. I personally just find this to be really satisfying, and it really makes for even a great main course. So as being vegan, we try to, see what kind of main course could we shift, our thought to, and this one being that it has fiber and protein and lots of mushrooms and green beans. This is really a great centerpiece. And I'm going to turn this over to Carolyn, and I am really excited for Carolyn's recipe. She told us about it a couple weeks ago, and being a mushroom lover, I am just so excited. So Carolyn, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susanna Dickman from Indiana, and I'm so happy to make some garlic and rosemary biscuits for you today. For me, Thanksgiving was all about eating stuffing, potatoes, and whatever biscuit we had served. And I'm going to make a really easy, quick one, and then I'm going to make a corn butter. So here I have, and you can use a combination of whole wheat flour or white whole wheat flour. I've used whole wheat flour. I do have 2 tablespoons. You can either use almond flour, or because my son has a tree nut allergy, I have found tiger nut flour. And even though it has the word nut in it, it is nut free. The tiger nut is actually a root. And so I sub that flour whenever a recipe calls for almond flour. So it's a really great substitute. I have some salt, a little bit of baking powder and baking soda. And here I have my rosemary, which I just learned that rosemary is really good for gut health. It's good for boosting memory, and it's also good for improving your mood. So it's you know how fragrant it is. I have a big bush outside in my backyard, and I love to just go out there and just walk by or touch it for that wonderful aromatic smell. I'm going to put in a cup of mashed potatoes, and I just used a yellow potato. You could use a red or a russet. It's up to you. And the next thing I'm going to add is 3/4 to a cup of oat milk. I've been using oat milk again because, and I've been making my own oat milk. It's so easy to do, and it's so much cheaper. So I've been enjoying using oat milk. So I'm going to add my 3/4. There's 1, 2, and the 3rd. I may need a little bit more when I start mixing up putting this mixture in my flour. But right now, I just want to mix it up and make sure that the potato is well incorporated so that when I put it in my flour mixture, it will just blend in really well. The potato is what's going to give us that creaminess out of the biscuit. And these biscuits, I have to tell you, I've been making them for a while now. And in anticipation of today, I made a couple of batches. And my husband and sons have just been enjoying them. Plain with some of the corn butter. Sometimes my husband makes seitan like Dilip made, and he likes to cut the biscuit in half and put some of that in some veggies and just have a little on-the-go sandwich. So these will be a great addition to your Thanksgiving meal. They'll also be great leftovers. Leftovers sandwiches were always a big thing. All right, now I'm going to take my wet mixture and start mixing it with my flour. Let me get that mixed up. This is where, as I said, you might need to add a little bit more of the milk. I found the last couple of times I've made this, I've added about 3 more tablespoons of liquid, just so that it gets well incorporated. You don't want to spend a lot of time mixing this with your hands. You don't want to knead it. So I'm going to, you can see it's coming together, but I am going to need to add some more milk. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and just, instead of adding a tablespoon, just add that another 1/4 cup of milk so that I can get this well incorporated. Okay. This is when you need the muscles to get in there and just making sure. So depending on, again, I steamed my potato in the microwave. So it was a little bit dry. So I'm going to add a little more milk. It won't be too wet. There we go. It's starting to come together. Once it comes together, what I did, if you can see right here, I thought it'd be fun to use some Thanksgiving cookie cutters. So we have some biscuits in the shape of pumpkins. I have some apples. I have a leaf and other things because I thought that that would be a nice addition. All right, I'm going to add a couple more tablespoons of milk, and I think that should do it. We're getting this. Let me move this over here. We're going to roll this out on my counter, and I'm going to put some flour down. I think that's good. So let me get in there and get some of this out. As I said, you know, it's okay to add a little bit more milk if you need it, but I think I'm just going to take that out. And it is a little sticky, but again, that's okay. I'll just incorporate a little bit more flour there. Now I want to roll it out to about an inch thick. So let me go ahead and do that. Just love the smells of the rosemary and the garlic. They are so good. And then I'm just going to press them. You could use a circle cookie cutter if you'd like to make it about a 2.5-inch circle. But like I said, I thought, you know, the different shapes would be great. So there's my apple. And these are going to go in the oven, and it's going to be 450 degrees. Again, depending on how hot your oven is, mine usually take about 25 minutes. You want them to be golden brown. And as I said, they are so good. They won't last very long on your table. You see, I have a lot more dough that I can use. I'm going to put it in there because I already have some made. Let me grab and get my hands clean. And I'm going to show you how to make the corn butter. When my family and I became plant-based, it really was difficult at first to get rid of butter and not put it on our biscuits and our rolls. You can buy some vegan butters, but they're really 100% fat. So you want to make something that's a little bit different. And this one is made with corn. Now, I already have cooked. I use frozen corn. You can use canned corn if that's what you prefer. But I had some frozen corn already in my freezer, and I just cooked it in the microwave. So you can see there is a little bit of liquid in here. And this was about 1.5 cups of corn. All I'm going to do is add a little bit of garlic powder and a little bit of salt. Of course, if you want to be salt-free, you can eliminate that. It's up to you. I'm going to process this, and then I will taste it. You might want to add a little bit more garlic powder. You might want to add salt or pepper, but this is it. Let me go ahead and mix it, and I'll show you how nice and creamy it is. All right, that's it. That's what I love about this. It's so simple and it tastes so good. It really does give you the same texture. You can see how thick it is. It gives you the same texture as if you were eating butter, but it tastes so much better and it is so good for you. All right, let me show you my finished products. So here we go. There's our corn butter, really good and tasty. And you can see our little, I don't want to tip them over, but our little biscuits. You make them circles, make them in different shapes. The rosemary and garlic. So, you know, this is something when you're cooking and if the neighbors are walking by, if the windows are open, they're going to be banging on your door and saying, hey, share some of those with me. Really great, easy recipe. These freeze well. I did make some last week to show you, and I put them in the freezer, took them out, let them just thaw in the fridge, and they are just so, so good. Great for dinner, great for leftovers for Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Next up, we have Carolyn, and she's in Montgomery, Alabama, and I tell you, when I saw her recipe, I'm really excited because I think that's something I definitely am going to make for my Thanksgiving dinner. Take care, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Montgomery, Alabama. And I'm going to start by showing you the finished product so you know what we're going for here. Okay, so this is what we like to call the holiday crescent ring, Thanksgiving crescent ring. And yes, it does use a store-bought crescent roll. So that's the one sinful part of this, but it is vegan. So this is the finished product that's already come out of the oven. Hand it off for just a second here. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do this. And like I said, it does use store-bought crescent rolls. So this is Immaculate Baking Company crescent rolls. These are vegan. I wouldn't describe them as health food, but you know, it's like a once a year thing. So they are vegan. They have some oil in them. I have tried to make the rest of the recipe, the filling for it, as healthy as possible with no oil. So, but yes, it does involve some crescent rolls. So I'll put those aside and we start with shallots. So shallots are also like garlic and onions, part of the allium family. And you're gonna need about a half a cup of chopped or diced shallots. And I've already started cooking them over here to save a little time. So I have my shallots pretty much cooked in vegetable broth. You could use homemade vegetable broth. You could use store-bought vegetable broth. I really like better than bouillon. They have several different vegan flavors you can use. And this one is the sauteed onion flavor of vegetable broth. So once you've got the shallots nice and cooked through to the point that they're translucent. So remember, when cooking with oil, things get more browned and crispy. When cooking with broth or water, they will become translucent, not necessarily browned. Unless you stop paying attention for a little bit and then you walk away and come back and they're maybe stuck to the pan and they've turned brown. But other than that, they aren't really going to get too crispy and brown like your things cooked in oil. So to that, we're going to add 2 cloves of garlic and mushrooms. And anybody who knows me well knows that I have not always been a fan of mushrooms. And I can hear my mother laughing right now because I'm cooking with mushrooms. But this is about 5 ounces, which equals out to about 2 cups of sliced mushrooms. What I've used here is baby Bella mushrooms and also a few shiitakes because I had them just to equal up to 5 ounces. So we're going to put that in the pan with the shallots and stir that around a little bit, let it get going. So something that happens with mushrooms is, and I am no mushroom expert, so if you have mushroom questions, put them in the your question area on the Facebook live feed and let us know, and I will not be the one answering that because I know nothing about mushrooms, except for probably when you're out hiking, you shouldn't eat the ones that you find in the woods. Other than that, I know that they're safe if they're at the grocery store, so that's what I get. And you're going to go ahead and saute those until the mushrooms will start releasing their liquid and they get really aromatic. So it's really starting to smell quite good. And then to keep it from sticking, I'm going to add a little more vegetable broth to the pan. You can hear that sizzling. So that'll help the mushrooms release their liquid. And then while that's cooking, and you're waiting for the mushrooms to kind of cook down and release their liquid, while that's cooking, you're going to take butternut squash and use about 3 cups of butternut squash, and you want to go ahead and steam it. So I've already done that. So this is cubed butternut squash that's already been steamed. Once that steams for about 10 minutes until it's fork tender, so about 10 minutes or so, and then take it out. And then you're just going to add about 3 cups of kale. And kale, so if you go back and watch our vegetable episode, Dilip talked a lot about kale and about the different kinds of kale. So what I've used here is the lacinato or dinosaur kale. But you could also use curly leaf kale like this, which just came from our lovely local CSA today. So very freshly picked, beautiful green kale. You could use curly leaf kale, you could use lacinato kale. It really doesn't matter, which kind of kale you use. So, okay. And then while that's getting cooked down is when you want to steam the butternut squash and then steam the kale. For just the kale, maybe you know, 2-3 minutes until it just turns nice bright green. One trick with the greens is when you're steaming them, you don't really want to put a lid on them, just turn them over the steaming water, because putting a lid on it causes the steam to come up and hit the lid and then drip back on it. And sometimes as greens are cooking, they're releasing some acids out of the leaves, and then it'll hit that lid and drip right back on them, and it causes the greens to become yellow or overcooked much faster. So if you want them to stay bright green, just steam it without the lid. And then these are getting beautiful and nice and cooked down. They smell so good. So while that's nearing the end of cooking, what we're going to do is take a 4th cup of red wine. You could probably use white wine as well. And if you watched our last episode, I talked a little bit about wine. And this brand, Pacific Redwood, has an organic red that says right on it that it is vegan and vegetarian friendly. So some wines aren't, unbelievably. So I've used just a 4th cup of red wine. And what we're going to do is put it in the pan and then let it cook down, so the wine is going to evaporate while we cook. So there won't be alcohol left in this for those of you who don't drink. It's really just imparting a nice depth of flavor to it. Same thing for, you know, I use shallots and garlic. Shallots just give it a little more depth of flavor than the garlic. They have a little more bite to them. So that's getting nice and cooked down and beautiful. It smells so good. We always talk about wishing we had smell-o-vision. So wish we had smell-o-vision right now. It smells so good. All right, so now that the wine is getting nice and cooked down, and the garlic and mushrooms are getting all cooked down, we just want to get a lot of that moisture out of there. We don't want it too moist because it's a filling, and so we don't want it to be really runny. Okay, and now that's nice and cooked down, that's when we add in the butternut squash and the kale. And then just mix it all together. This beautiful filling is coming together very nicely. And then you just want to stir it around to get all of it mixed up really, really well, to have it balanced when you put it in the crescent ring. Okay, that looks fabulous. All right, so you will need 2 cans of the crescent rings. And then when you pop them open, and I don't know about you, but that always scares me every time I pop it open, because they pop open and never know when that's going to happen. You'll pull the crescent rolls out into these rectangular shapes. So this is actually 2 crescent rolls. There's a line down the middle, and then lay it out in kind of a pinwheel pattern like this. And then we will take the filling and start layering it on top around the inside of the ring. So as close to the center of the ring as you can, not way out on the outside of the ring. So you'll want to layer the filling around the middle to keep it as close to the center as possible. And then we'll pop that in. Okay. This just smells so good. And then I'm going to show you how to fold this over to make it come out just perfect every time. So since we've put it toward the middle of the ring, we'll be taking from the outside edges and folding over. Let's see if I can get all the rest of that out of there. Okay. There we go. Okay, that looks beautiful. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, I've layered it toward the outside edge, toward the inside edge of the ring. Okay, and then you're just going to take the outside edges and lift them up and pull them over the filling and kind of tuck it under. And then just take the next one, pull it, tuck it under, all the way around the ring. Pull and tuck. And pull and tuck. This is very stretchy dough, so you can just pull on it pretty hard if you need to, and pull it all the way around. And then make sure you're putting it on a pan that's lined with parchment paper. Do not make the mistake I made last year when I brought this for an office party and I put it on wax paper. That was a really bad idea. It stuck and that was bad. Then we had to chisel it off for people to be able to eat it. So do not put it on wax paper, put it on parchment paper. And then it's okay if these little if the little perforations in the rolls pop open, that's perfectly fine. You kind of want to come around and pop them open a little bit and let the filling kind of peek out through the edges, through the holes. And then you could either make a balsamic glaze yourself by taking regular balsamic vinegar, about a half a cup, and then put it in a small saucepan and then set it to simmer and let it start to reduce by half. A really cool trick to know when you've reduced it by half is to use a popsicle stick. So when you put the popsicle stick in the balsamic vinegar, it's going to stain the stick right where the line was. And then as you come along, you can see where that line was. And then as it cooks down, you can see that it's cooked down by half instead of just trying to eyeball it because you want it to be nice and thick. Another option is you could buy already made balsamic glaze, which is delicious. They have this at Costco. I'm not sure where else, but it's called Nana Pia's balsamic glaze. It is 100% balsamic vinegar that's already been reduced and cooked down so it's nice and thick. So it's non-GMO. It's totally balsamic vinegar that's been cooked down for you. So you can find a balsamic glaze. You can make it yourself by reducing it down by half. And then remember my popsicle stick trick. And then we're going to take balsamic glaze and just glaze it all over the crescent rolls. And then if you have any left at the end, that's great because then you could serve it with the dish. When you cut slices of it, it's just beautiful with all those vegetables peeking out. So I'm just going to glaze the whole thing. And then when it comes out of the oven, 350 degrees for about 30 minutes, depending on, if your oven is really heating to 350 or not. If you feel like it's not quite done in the middle or the crescent rolls aren't getting quite baked in the middle, you could tent it with aluminum foil and just make sure those crescent rolls are getting cooked all the way through because raw crescent roll dough isn't very good. So it comes out looking absolutely beautiful. I like to serve it with some cranberry sauce, just set it right in the middle of the ring. And it makes a beautiful centerpiece dish. So if you're going to dinner with a bunch of people who are having, their traditional, what they think of as a centerpiece dish, the turkey, then you can bring this and say, this is my centerpiece dish. And everybody will want some because it is beautiful and delicious and super nutritious. That filling is just so good for you with the kale and the butternut squash. So I hope you'll give it a try. And then I'm going to pass you off now to Debbie Zimmerman in Lakeland, Florida. Take it away, Debbie.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Carolyn, your recipe was awesome, and I cannot wait to try it. I really would like it right now. If you could please send it down this way to Florida. So folks, today I am going to be making calabacitas. And this is an easy dish, but the reason why I'm making it is because we all love those really calorie dense foods at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, but sometimes we need to have some things that are going to fill us up without all of the calories. And that's what this recipe is going to do. There's no guilt with this, but we're using the calabacitas is actually zucchini squash. And we're using two different types today. And the great thing is that you can actually use any squash that you want, okay? So we're starting with onions, and you will see that I've actually sauteed my onions and also my jalapeno peppers and garlic in here. So the important thing is that we are going to dry these onions out. and we did so nicely. The next thing we're going to do is add our squash to this. And we're going to continue cooking this over on the stove. And you may know that our squash is very high in water. A lot of vegetables are. This is one of the highest water content vegetables. So it's going to be filling along with that fiber that it's filled with, but we don't want it to be too soggy. So right now I have this on and it's going to cook just a little bit. Some of the things that we're going to add, I also have 1.5 cups of yellow corn. And this was just frozen corn. I like to keep corn in the freezer so that whenever I need it, I can grab it. I also have 3 chopped plum tomatoes, and I have 8 ounces of sliced portobello mushrooms. And you can use whatever mushrooms you would like to use. It's very simple. Just to mention to you that I had sauteed my onions, garlic, and jalapeno peppers in this vegetable broth. It is low sodium, and it is one of the lowest amounts of sodium that I have found as far as vegetable broth goes. I also have my other pumpkins sitting over here because I do like to add other squash, and pumpkins are in the squash family. So this is a pie pumpkin, and these are white pie pumpkins. Some people have said that they've never seen a white pumpkin, but these are great. I absolutely love them. They're easy to use. And sometimes, just to let you know, while this is cooking back here, just to let you know, if you struggle to cut this open, one easy way is to take a sharp knife and cut a little slit in it on both sides, and then put it in the microwave for just 5 minutes. The slits will allow the steam to come out, but it will also be much easier then to cut through it. And if you are cutting slices out of it, because you can stuff this very nicely, each serving, but you can slice those little pie sections out to serve individually, or you can cut it open. And then of course, pull out all of the seeds, but it's much easier once you have microwaved it for about 5 minutes. Also, we have Publix here, and Publix is always great at cutting these in two. As I said, sometimes they're hard. It's a struggle to cut them open. And so I always let the people in the produce department do that along for me. I hear this cooking back here. I also want to tell you about the tiger pumpkins, and these are also very good. We see these around much longer than the pie pumpkins. So don't be afraid of cooking these. These are excellent, and they also make great shells for stuffing. A mixture that is full of your greens, you can stuff right in there and it'll be super, super great. So anyway, I hear this cooking back here, and I'm going to stir it. And can you see that? We talk about aroma. The aroma back here is just excellent. And that's just something that y'all can't have over a video, but it's so good. Okay, I am going to add our seasoning now. And this is cumin, and it is red pepper. I also have a tablespoon of Mrs. Dash herb and garlic. I'm going to add our mushrooms and then our tomatoes. And then the last thing I'm going to put is our corn. Let me just show you what this looks like because the colors are absolutely beautiful. I hope you can see that. And then I'm going to put our corn on top. Now, what can you do with this? This actually can be eaten as a side dish, but you also can take this and you can use it as a taco filling. You can use it as a burrito filling. I like to take a burrito and put a layer of hummus on it and then put this filling on it, roll it up, and it's just super, super great. But as I said, you can also just have this as a side and it's tremendous. So what does it look like when it's done? Here we go. This is all of the great flavors. I actually did not dry this out as much as I should have, but you can see that everything is nicely cooked and it is ready to be enjoyed. So I really hope that all of y'all have a fabulous, fabulous Thanksgiving. May you be blessed abundantly. And now I am going to send our Zoom meeting over to Kobe in Omaha, Nebraska, Cody, excuse me, in Omaha, Nebraska, and she's got a fabulous recipe waiting for you. Take care and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Debbie. That looked delicious. I can't wait to give that a shot here someday soon. Happy Thanksgiving month to you guys. I'm so excited to be here to share one of my favorite little recipes. It's really easy to whip up, and it's just a great complementing recipe for Thanksgiving because it's a really great, I guess you could call it like a meat substitute. I haven't been whole food plant-based all my life, and so I grew up with the traditional types of Thanksgiving food. And so for my family, you know, this is a really great substitute. It's also a great one to bring to other people's homes. So if I were to go see my family this year, it just kind of depends on the circumstances, but I would probably bring this dish or maybe make it at my mother's house. And like I said, it's super easy. The ingredients are fabulous. And just basic, but it comes together really good and lots of great flavor. So just to go through a little bit more about myself. So I am a Food for Life instructor, of course. I'm really excited to be a part of this team of other Food for Life instructors. I do live in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm a nursing instructor that teaches for a couple local colleges, and I really enjoy that. So being a Food for Life instructor is one way that I can educate my nursing students on the power of prevention and reversal of chronic disease, and which will hopefully have a trickle-down effect to our patients in the future. So I'm really excited to share my knowledge with them and with my community. And so anyway, getting back to my recipe here, I'm going to be using soy curls, some onion powder, garlic powder, pepper, smoked paprika, a little bit of parsley, and some all vegetable bouillon. And it's a no chicken base, but it's for those who want that kind of a flavor. This is a good one to use. There's all sorts of great kinds out there. And then we're also going to use some water, some filtered water, and some cornstarch for a thickener. So this is called seasoned soy curls with gravy. So this would go really great with a side of vegan mashed potatoes, right? So instead of using your milk, you could use like a soy milk, a non-sweetened one, to add into the mashed potatoes and whip it up. If you need a little bit of butter flavoring, you could get some vegan butter and add in there. We try to do no to low oils, so we don't add that. And I feel like we don't even need it. And this recipe actually would go great on top of the mashed potatoes if you like that. If you're one to like to mix those sort of things. I know some people keep things completely separate. I like to just put a bunch of this on top of my mashed potatoes, and it's delicious. So this is typically how we serve it for like a Thanksgiving feast. Okay, so let me go through this a little bit. I'm going to get into a little bit more of these soy curls once I get them started as far as the background and what we use them for. But so one package of soy curls is what you need. And these are from Butler. And I'll explain that in a little bit more. But all you do is you take it was about 2 teaspoons of your vegetable bouillon and 4 cups of water. You mix it up. And it might help to mix it if you heat up the water a little bit to kind of get it warm. And then I had just dumped in this bag of soy curls into this bowl, and look how much this is. I added that bouillon in there after I mixed it up. And the soy curls, they're dehydrated in the bag, but when you stick them in here, they need to sit for about 10 minutes in your liquid, whatever liquid you want, and it's going to absorb that. And with doing the bouillon to begin with, it's going to absorb that flavor inside the soy curl. So it's going to make it really delicious. So I did that. I drained off that extra bouillon into this bowl right here. And now I'm going to use this to make the gravy with, okay? So first of all, what we're going to do is take our rehydrated soy curls and we're going to put them in a frying pan, okay? So let me get this turned on here. I got a gas stove top, so I have to watch out. That's why my hair is pulled back. All right, so you're just going to dump these on here. So this can feed my family of 5 for at least 2 good meals because there is so much of this. Now these soy curls, they come in a variety of sizes. Since they're rehydrated, or in the bag when they're dehydrated, I guess, they can kind of crumble a little bit. So you do have to be a little careful. You don't want to squish the bag or you're going to break up your soy curl. Now, usually they're about this size. They can also work good in the air fryer at this size. There are some little crumblies in here, which are fine for my gravy, but I probably wouldn't want to put those in my air fryer. Let me just kind of show you that. So there's just some little crumblies here. All right, so my pan is hot. I got a variety of different sizes of soy curls for this recipe. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start sprinkling in my seasoning. So I got some onion powder here. I think I have just a half a teaspoon. So if you like more onion flavoring, because this is quite a bit of soy curls, go ahead and just maybe double that. It just kind of depends. You can always add more if you think you need a little stronger. Okay, I got a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. All right, and about 1/4 a teaspoon of smoked paprika. And if you haven't tried the smoked paprika, you need to give it a try. It is so worth it. It gives it a beautiful little color there. And then about 1/8 a teaspoon of black pepper. And again, you can always add more. My kids don't like a lot of pepper in there, so I try not to make it too strong for them. So what I would normally do is let these kind of get browned a little bit and stir it. It's getting pretty hot. So while these are getting hot here, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about these soy curls. So the only brand that I have seen is Butler, and you can order them online, and it's at www.butlerfoods.com, and it only contains soy. It says the ingredients are whole non-GMO soybeans. Okay, so that's pretty awesome, right? And so, like I said, this little bag makes a huge handful. I think these usually run anywhere from like $4 to $6 a bag. So it's a pretty good price, I think. Like I said, you have to rehydrate it, and it takes about 10 minutes for that to happen. And then drain off the juice. And like you said, if you want to use it for gravy, then keep the juice, okay? And if not, you can use it for other things where you just want to season it and maybe get rid of the juice or save it as another day, that's fine. But it's a great substitute, like for stir fries. You could season this with maybe your Asian seasonings, like some ginger, maybe some chili powder, give it a little kick. All sorts of ways you can season this. Like I said, it's just going to take on whatever flavor you put in there with it. But these would be great on Buddha bowls. The first time I actually had these, somebody had used them in a cream of mushroom soup that was vegan. And I was just amazed. I'm like, this just gave it a lot of great texture and it was just delicious. Those are getting pretty hot. So what I'm gonna do is I would normally let this kind of get a little more browned on the edges, but for time's sake today, I'm not gonna wait that long. So it'd probably take a good, probably 10 minutes for a big pan like this to get kind of browned in all areas. And you don't have to do that if you're in a hurry. It's just something that I just prefer to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in some of my liquid here. So what I'm gonna be doing now is getting it hot. Now, if you like lots of gravy, you can go ahead and get more of that vegetable bouillon whipped up. So it's just basically like about 1 teaspoon of that veggie bouillon to about 2 cups of your filtered water, and then you just mix it up. And if it's one that's a little bit harder to stir up, then use warm water, and it will stir up a lot quicker for you. All right, and this is getting pretty full. I'd hate to make my pan overflow here. See how it's bubbling? It's boiling. It smells really good. It's amazing how much flavor that vegetable bouillon really has in it. It's just incredible. Okay, so what's next is I'm going to take about 1/2 cup of just filtered water, and then I have 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. So you can do other ways, other things to thicken it up. You could do like flour, but in my home, we're actually gluten-free for my husband, so we do a lot of cornstarch for our thickener, and it works really well. So all I'm gonna do is put this in the water, and then I'm just gonna use a fork, but you could also use like a little whisk. It's whatever you have handy. Sometimes I don't always have a whisk that's clean and ready to go, so I can just whisk it up with a fork. And this is gonna thicken up really quickly here because my pan is nice and hot. And I have to stir it in there. Otherwise, if you don't stir it, if you just pour this in there and let it set, you're gonna have like a bunch of clumpy stuff on the bottom. So we wanna incorporate this so it doesn't get so clumpy. What you can do is find an area where you got your juice there and pour it in, and you wanna mix it. Careful not to slop it out. And then once that starts heating up, you're gonna notice that your sauce is gonna get a little thicker like gravy. And if you like it super thick, then add a little bit more of your cornstarch and bouillon solution or water solution. It's easy peasy. And the girls love it. So maybe just a little bit more. And this is probably what we'll have for Thanksgiving. Like I said, with the side of mashed potatoes, I'll probably have my daughters make cornbread and a good salad. They've been whipping up some fun recipes and they're excited to do another So Many Kids in the Kitchen cooking show. And December's our next one. I think we're looking at doing some desserts. So they're getting excited. All right, that looks nice and thick, but not too thick. I still have a little bit left over. And sometimes it will thicken a little bit as it sets. So I'm just gonna shut this off. Now, pretend that I have a nice big bowl of mashed potatoes here, okay? And this would just go right on top. And it would be delicious, let me tell you. Then you can do a little bit of fresh parsley as a little bit of garnish. And there you go. Easy peasy, delicious. And it's all only just organic GMO, non-GMO, sorry, soy. Pretty awesome, right? All right, just want to tell you that I'm actually having another Thanksgiving Facebook Live Feast with Tammy and my friend Stephanie. And it's on Cooking on the Veg. It's next weekend on Saturday. So if you're interested, just go to Cooking on the Veg and check that out. I'd love to have you there. And I just want to thank you for joining me today. It was a pleasure to do this demonstration for you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it now over to Oren in Calmanandra. Sorry, I probably butchered that, Jonan, over in Italy. So take it away, Jonan.
Thank you, Cody. I have a hard to say name and a hard to say name for a town. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kashinagano Orsi in Calmandrana, Italy. Everybody's been sharing wonderful recipes, and it took me back years ago. I remember that the first Thanksgiving I had was not maybe as long as some of you have had it. It was 1979. I was a freshman in college, and I went to my roommate's home in Geneva, Ohio, by the lake, and we had a fantastic farmhouse Thanksgiving, and I was blown away. I had probably never seen so much food and so much variety on a table. That's 41 years ago. So this is all because I was new to America, and years later, I also became a naturalized citizen. I adopted Thanksgiving as a happy holiday for my family and friends. And every year, whether I lived in the US or not, celebrated Thanksgiving. Here we are now living in Italy, and I still celebrate Thanksgiving. And tonight, well, it's night. This is sort of like Saturday Night Live from Calmandrana, Italy. It's a Thanksgiving show, so I'm doing something with pumpkins. You know, Thanksgiving, pumpkin go together, but something not so traditional Thanksgiving-y. But it's very plant-based, and it makes a wonderful nibble as you wait for the lunch to be ready or dinner to be ready. People can go along and take little bites. So I made a hummus. What is there not to like about a hummus? And what's there Thanksgiving about it? Well, I took the original recipe and I added pumpkin to it. It's basically very easy. And if you have watched our show from about 3 weeks ago, October 17th, it was, I believe, we had a show called So Much Squash. During that show, I demonstrated how to make oven roasted squash. So please, for part of this recipe, refer back to our show on squash, and the recipe for making roasted squash is there. Although it's really easy, you chop them into bite-sized pieces, and then you put them on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet, and you bake them at 400-degree oven for about 25 minutes. I just want to show you that for this recipe, I let them really brown and caramelize really well, because it brings out that flavor of caramelized pumpkin really well, and it helps bring a wonderful Thanksgiving-y feeling to the hummus. As with all the other recipes, the recipe and the ingredients are online for you for this dish. Basically, I have chickpeas. These are home cooked, but you can always have a standby of a can of chickpeas. There's tahini in it. There's some paprika, some turmeric, salt and pepper, lemon juice, lemon zest. You can see the little marks. Garlic. And I have some toasted sesame seeds to sprinkle afterwards on top, which gives a wonderful flavor and also adds added nutrition. Basically, it's a very easy dish to do. And the good news is, since everybody has so much to prepare for Thanksgiving, you can do this 1-2 days ahead of time and have it ready in the fridge and take it out on the day. So basically, you put everything into a food processor. The lemon juice, the chickpeas, and the oven roasted squash, and you just give them a good swirl until it becomes really nice and creamy. And for this recipe, to make it a little bit more pumpkin and Thanksgiving flavored, I add allspice. Normally I would use cumin in normal hummus, but in the pumpkin one, I use allspice. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, allspice is wonderful. It's not a mixture, it is a single spice that gives you pretty much the flavor of cloves and cinnamon and pepper and all of them just put together into one, and it goes really beautifully with pumpkin. It also has that little bit of a nutmeg flavor. And I recommend that you serve it together with homemade tortilla chips. I gave the recipe for that online as well. So you can see they're really crunchy. I basically buy as good a quality tortilla as I can find. And here in Italy, I find this one, and it's a whole grain one. And the good news is it has only 3.5 grams of fat per tortilla. So imagine if you had tortilla chips from a bag, they would be really laden with fats. And this way, I make sure that I have a wonderful tortilla to eat at home, but with much less fat. And also, the good news is this one has 3.2 grams of fiber per tortilla as well. So we need fiber. And while we got to the topic of nutrition, I'd like to let you know that this combination of hummus with pumpkin gives you really a lot of nutrients. There's quite a lot of fiber in both of them, both chickpeas and pumpkins. The pumpkins give the added vitamins and minerals to this dish. Their pumpkins and pretty much all winter squashes are full of beta carotenes, which is a precursor to vitamin A. They're full of carotenoids such as lutein and zeaxanthin, and they're good for fighting the free radicals. They prevent free radical damage. And they're also, the pumpkins are full of vitamin C, vitamin B, magnesium, potassium, good for heart health, protein as well, and fiber. And who doesn't need fiber? We all need fiber. It's very good for us. And the addition of sesame seeds gives us a lot of calcium as well, along with lots of minerals, other minerals too. And I have sprinkled on the final product some paprika and some lemon zest and the sesame seeds, just as decoration. You can decorate it as you wish. And here you go. There's a very easy seasonal variation on an old favorite hummus. And who wouldn't want it? Please, I want to demonstrate. So you can go like that, or you can just dip it in there, put the yummy crunchy thing in your mouth and enjoy it prior to the Thanksgiving meal starting. Or it could also be a very good appetizer for when everybody is at the table. Before I go, my presentation was brief this evening. Before I go, I would like to let you know that my colleague and my Food for Life training classmate and roommate, Karen Osborne from Austin, Texas, will be next. And with that, I'd like to say goodbye and arrivederci from Italy. Take it away, Karen. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, John. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to my kitchen in Austin, Texas. Karen Osborne from myfoodfitnessandfun.com. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about cranberries. It's one of my favorite foods during this time of the year, and it's really only available for a short while. So get them and enjoy them. You can freeze them. You can put them on a cookie sheet and put them in your freezer for a couple of hours, and then you can just put them in a freezer bag and they'll keep for 6 to 12 months. So if you want to get a head start on your holiday baking next year, do that pretty soon. I will be. So a long time ago, the glaciers were receding and they carved out cavities that evolved into the cranberry bogs. There were ponds with debris and clay, and cranberries started to grow wild there. And even before the Europeans came over here, the Native Americans ate cranberries and they used them as medicines, and they actually dyed fabric with them. So they were known to be good for you even back then. And then when the Pilgrims came over, they saw, so the Native Americans didn't call them cranberries. The Pilgrims saw the blossoms and they looked like the heads of sand cranes. And they really do. I looked it up. You should look them up. They're really pretty. But anyway, that's why they started calling them craneberries. And then over the years, it evolved into cranberries. So they grow naturally on vines close to the earth, and they just need the sandy acidic soil with a high water table. So they don't really grow in water like we think they do, because we always see pictures of cranberries in water. But the wild cranberries were growing like that until like the 1800s, when people decided they wanted to farm them. So they wanted more, so they started farming them, and it takes like 16 months for them to mature. And so they'll plant them like in the spring, and then they grow through the fall or the summer, the fall, and they lie dormant in the winter, and then they start growing again in spring until the fall when they harvest them. So they were harvested by hand until the late 1800s. Like 1880s, they developed a tool, a big wood scoop to help with the harvesting. And even as late as 1927, children were let out of school to help with the harvest. It was that important. So they grow like in the northeastern part of the US, the southern part of Canada. But since the 1960s, we've been using a wet picking method where this big machine is driven through the bogs, and it has a big water wheel, and that pushes, so cranberries float. So the bogs are flooded. They're flooded twice during their growing term. The first time they flooded in the winter to protect them over the winter. And then when they're ready to harvest, they flood the bogs again, and the cranberries float, and then this machine comes through, pushes the cranberries over to one side, where a conveyor belt will pick them up and lift them onto a truck, where they're taken to a sorting house, and they're sorted, they're cleaned, sorted, and then taken to be processed. The first time somebody sold cranberry sauce, which is what a lot of the cranberries are processed into, it was Elizabeth Lee. In 1917, she sold the cranberry sauce as, it was called Bog Sweet. And then later she partnered with someone in Massachusetts, and they developed this company, Ocean Spray, that we know today. So like the US produces over 800 million pounds of cranberries a season, and Canada produces almost 400 million, but only about 5% of those are sold to be used fresh. The rest of them go to juice and cranberry sauce and to be dried. But the best way to eat them, and what I'm going to do with them, is going to be using them fresh, because the cranberries are full of phytonutrients and they're amazing. If you had a choice, like most of the time you have to just take a bag of cranberries from the grocery store. But if you could pick them, you'd want firm, like the more red, the better, because more phytonutrients are like they increase as the berries get red. So they start out kind of white, and they do sometimes sell white ones, but they're not as acidic. So they're not as tart, but then they're not as beneficial to your body. So those phytonutrients are amazing. They can do so much. Just some of the things they can do is raise your HDL, lower your LDL. They can protect the LDL from oxidation. They can lower homocysteine, lower inflammation, lower blood pressure. They can help prevent urinary tract infections. They can prevent bacteria from sticking to your teeth. And they can also help prevent H. pylori from attaching to the wall, the lining of your intestine or your intestinal tract. So the thing that I'm going to do with them is, and I just took a bag. This recipe is so easy. You really don't need to measure hardly anything. So I took a bag of cranberries, and once you toss out the ones that are kind of shriveled or soft, because you want the firm ones, you end up with maybe 3 or 3.5 cups. And so I'm just going to put them in the food processor. And this recipe is a cranberry relish that we used to eat when I was growing up, but it was, so I've adapted it to make it healthier. So it was like cranberries are so tart and sharp. So we used to kind of chop them and coat them with sugar and let them sit for a while before we use them. But what I'm going to do is chop them. So I've got some organic medjool dates, and I've chopped them. But when you use organic dates, you want to open them up and take out the pit and just check and make sure there's no mold or no critters in there. Rather have critters in there than pesticides, but you want to check. So I've got the cranberries in the food processor. I'm just putting the dates in. So I've chopped them so that they'll get dispersed pretty easily because I don't want to puree anything. I want a nice chunky relish here. So all I'm going to do is pulse it a little bit until the cranberries are chopped. And that's enough. And then what I'm going to do, I've chopped some apples and 2 apples and 2 oranges. And I chopped them for the same reason, because I don't want to puree anything. Just want it all chunky. And then I'm going to put in some cinnamon, which is antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. It's delicious. And it's also, it can help you control your blood sugar. There have been a lot of good studies where you don't need that much to have an effect on your blood sugar. Also, I have some ground cloves, which are also anti-inflammatory, and they are kind of an anesthetic, a mild anesthetic. And so you can find clove oil in like mouthwash or sore throat sprays. And that's all you need to do. If you want to, you can add some chopped pecans in here, but I'm leaving that out. The other thing I'm going to put in, so this is ground ginger. I just grated it on a microplane. Didn't even need to peel it. I'm putting it in, and it's going to give it a little kick, and that's also really healthy for you, really anti-inflammatory. But if you have children at your table, you might want to leave that one out. It's still delicious without the ginger in there. So I'm just going to put the lid on and pulse it until everything's pretty mixed up, chopped up. Just gonna get it down off of the sides. So when you choose your apples for this dish, I would choose a sweet apple like Fuji or Golden Delicious, also to like counteract the tartness. And that's it. So like I said, the cranberries, you can freeze them for 6 to 12 months. When you take them out of the freezer, you want to use them right away because like it's freezing and breaks that cell wall. And then they get soft when you take them out. So if you're using them in a raw dish, you can thaw them out and drain them. But if you're putting them in something baked like a muffin or something, you can just use them frozen and then just adjust your cooking time, add a few more minutes. So I'm gonna just pour it into my serving dish. And also they'll keep for about 3 weeks in the refrigerator if you buy a lot of them. Great. And here we have the health promoting, anti-inflammatory, delicious, cool, and refreshing dish to go with all the savory, yummy Thanksgiving dishes at your table. So I hope you'll try it and let us know how you like it. Thanks for watching and happy Thanksgiving. So we're gonna go to Q&A. So back to you, Dilip.
Okay, that looked amazing. You know, when you were working with those cranberries, I was just amazed at how vibrant they were. So what a great show. I know a lot of questions have come in, and let's see if anybody sees any questions. Before we start on questions, I wanted to add a comment. I had forgotten when I was talking about seitan, I know there was a question about price. And so making it from scratch isn't very expensive. You can make seitan, a big batch of it for just a couple dollars. But if you want to buy prepared seitan, which is what I do, then I usually find an 8-ounce package of seitan costs about $4. And in terms of how you store it, it's refrigerated. You can buy it near tofu. You can find it where tofu is sold typically. And it has a very generous expiration date. Typically, it's weeks in the future, up to maybe a month or 5 weeks, something like that. But once you open it, you want to keep it in a sealed container in the refrigerator, and it will last for 2, 3, 4 days, something like that. And there was a question that somebody asked about sodium. If you make your own seitan, absolutely, you can make it lower in sodium. So were there other questions? I have a few I know that came through, but I know others are more carefully watching Facebook. So Suzanne or others, does anybody have any questions you know of that came in? While you're trying to unmute, I will mention something came up when Susanna was cooking about corn, and there was some dialogue about corn. And Susanna, did you want to address that? Somebody had a question. It looks like a lot of the recipes have corn, and are there any issues with corn in terms of it's being organic or GMO or so forth?
Yes, and the concern was with the pesticide geosplyte. Am I saying it right?
Glyphosate.
Yes, there you go. I only use organic corn. Knowing that, I also know that yes, pesticides can get into organic products because they, the wind blows things. So, we prefer to buy organic. And when I think about our whole diet, I really don't eat a lot of it. I make this, for special occasions, but organic corn, I know that reduces your risk, but I feel like that is just something that everyone personally needs to make a decision if they want to eat a lot of corn. We typically, I don't buy other products that have corn in them because we're eating whole foods. So this was frozen corn.
Suzanne, I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about your casserole. So Suzanne, you did the green bean mushroom casserole, and there's so many kinds of mushrooms. So I can't remember if you mentioned what kind of mushroom you use, but can you talk about the different kinds of mushrooms and what kinds you might recommend in your casserole?
Sure. So I really like the deep flavor of a portobello, and that's what I've used today. It kind of has a like a meatier flavor to it. It's a little richer. and heavier. So it's definitely a very flavorful casserole. If you wanted something less mushroom-like, if you have people or family members who don't love mushrooms, then I'd recommend even just white button mushrooms or shirataki mushrooms. Those are much more mild of a mushroom, but I personally enjoy the portobellos, and I just like the deep brown flavor. And that's the other thing, if you maybe have some guests that are a little maybe more finicky or turned off because of color of things and it not looking as traditional, then a white button mushroom would be much more of a lighter color when of the creamy sauce, where this ends up being very dark, but it's absolutely delicious, and it just has a really nice flavor.
Yeah, mushrooms seems to be a love or hate. Some people love them, including
Right.
myself, and there are a few people who really hate mushrooms.
Yes, there are. I live with some of them.
I
But believe it
I
or not,
was one of them.
don't love mushroom, right. Even though they don't love mushroom, actually, I've started using mushrooms in place of meat for tacos. I mix mushrooms and lentils together, and they've actually now preferred them over some of the plant-based meats. You know, meaning the like Impossible or Beyond. I apologize for the ringing. It's my dog saying he wants to go out. So they're being stinkers today. It actually is a really great flavor as a meat substitute, really, because you can grind down mushrooms. They have a nice texture to them, and they can really substitute in a lot of recipes, a spaghetti sauce, a taco mixture, and they're really, really healthy.
And I think Suzanne brings up a really interesting point about substituting for meat. Many of us, perhaps all of us, don't do that. We like the food we're eating, and I don't look to substitute for meat. But with Thanksgiving around the corner, some of us may be hosting, and those of you in the audience may be wanting to move towards a plant-based diet. And so your audience may be looking for foods that remind them of flesh foods. And so that's the reason I think many of us like to have these go-to dishes that we can make, whether we eat those kinds of dishes all the time or not, and we try to make them healthy. So I think that's something.
I'm sorry, something else with substituting is Thanksgiving is, a time where actually almost every traditional side dish can really be made without meat. And whether it's stuffing, and you can even cut out the oil by doing a water saute when you first start, and then you add your bread and use vegetable broth. Same thing with mashed potatoes. You can easily cut out the milk, cut out any like chicken broth by using vegetable broth. You can cut out the butter by truly just using vegetable broth. You don't even need an oil substitute when you're making mashed potatoes. Another great thing to do is to take like a whole garlic clove and roast it in the oven. Just wrap it up in some foil and roast it in the oven. And when the garlic is roasted, after about like 45 to 50 minutes, it becomes like a really, like you can just sort of squeeze it right out of the cloves. And that's kind of like, it's almost like a pasty material that really blends into the mashed potatoes. And that with vegetable broth is really all that you need for a really yummy, creamy consistency without using any butter, any dairy, any chicken broth. It's an easy time to substitute. So when you're looking at all of your traditional Thanksgiving recipes, just think to yourself, where can I use vegetable broth? Where can I avoid using butters and oils and even margarines? Even though that may be vegan, it still has a high percentage of fat. So it's a great time to look at your traditional recipes and say, hey, what can I substitute? You can use flax for flaxseed and water for an egg. So there's lots of great ways and really easy ways just to even take your traditional recipes that you have and just substitute them out.
And I love what you said. And one thing I also noticed about your presentation, I think it was you used flax milk, and I love flax milk. I need to update. One of these days, we're going to do a cheese and yogurt show. And by that, I mean a plant-based cheese, plant-based milk, plant-based yogurt. I make my own, and I think probably a number of others make our own yogurt. I love yogurt, and I use soy milk. But the same brand of flax milk you're using, I tried an experiment a few days ago to make yogurt out of it, and it actually was really good. So I need to do it a few more times to see if I have to, to perfect it. But I actually liked it more than my soy yogurt I've been making for years. So that was, what was the name? What was the brand? It was,
It's called Good Karma.
Good Karma brand, right?
And the container is like an off-white with either green or blue, and the blue is the unsweetened vanilla, and the green is just unsweetened plain.
Yeah, I like the unsweetened. And yesterday I was shopping for the show today, and I noticed the store I was at had a plus protein, and it cost more. And we should talk about that at some point. Most Americans get way too much protein, and so obviously we can't make recommendations for individuals. You should talk to your healthcare provider, but I recommend not being misled. Hey, that's a high protein food. Even raw food vegans are probably getting more than enough protein. Carolyn, I wanted to ask you a question about your crescent ring. First of all, it's such a great idea. Just looking at it, I would never have thought of that. So could you talk about how you keep it from being messy, because you put all the ingredients in and then you bake it. So how do you keep the food from kind of coming out?
Well, it does kind of come out the side, so you can see that while everybody else was cooking, my husband and I ate a half of it.
It's true crescent.
So
true crescent.
So yes, now it's a moon, a crescent moon. But so once it starts baking, I mean, it's okay if some of the filling comes out the little gaps in the side. That's perfectly fine. Because when you wrap the crescent around it, it keeps most of it in. So it's okay if some of it seeps out the side a little bit. That's fine. Most of it will stay in. So, and then like I said, when I was cooking it in the pan, you want to dry it, not totally dry it out, but at least let most of the liquid evaporate out of it before you then try to put it in the crescent ring. Because if it's too wet, it'll keep the dough a little too wet, and then it's hard for it to bake all the way through. So I actually have the other one in the oven right now, baking. So, and it was a little wet when I put it in, so we'll see how that comes out. But really it doesn't get all that messy, and it's kind of pretty if some of the green and orange of the kale and the butternut squash peek out through the little gaps in the crescent. That's fine.
Oh, it looked great. Cody, I wanted to ask you a question, and that is, could you talk more about soy curls? It seems like it's become kind of the rage the last 2-3 years, and somebody gave me some at one point, and I made it once or twice. My wife doesn't eat tofu; it bothers her, and the soy would bother her. So it was really for my daughter and myself. And I can't remember. I'm not as good at it as you are. I just did 1 or 2 things with it. So can you talk a little bit about price, availability? Do you get it from mail order? And is it easy to come up with new dishes with soy curls? And are they healthy?
Yeah, so first of all, yes, I mean, they are healthy. They are, probably a little bit processed just to get them to that state of being dehydrated. And it doesn't, must be ground up some way. They don't explain how they actually make these. I don't know if it's like a secret kind of way that they make these, but as far as I know, Butler is the only place that makes them, and I do buy them at like a natural grocery store, and or you can buy them directly through butler.com. And the more you get in an order, the cheaper each package can become. And I tend to find it actually a pretty good price at natural grocers, from, I don't know, around like $4 or $5 for a bag of that. And then I think it was maybe $6 to $7 a bag if you order directly from Butler. So it just kind of depends, look for sales on it too. Not all stores will carry it. So it's just kind of like one of those health food type stores that will likely see those in. And so, yeah, I really love them. It's just been great. I've only been whole food plant-based for about 3.5 years, and my kids about a year, and my husband. And so this is a really kind of a nice little food for them as a meat substitute, I guess you could call it. But we just enjoy it. It's fun. It can pretty much take on whatever flavor that you put with it. So you can make it pretty much in any kind of cuisine that you want. And so last night I made like pizzas, vegetarian or vegan pizzas. And we had some soy curls that I had cooked up previously a couple nights ago. And I did more of like an Italian seasoning on it. So like the oregano and a little parsley and basil sprinkled in there, and of course garlic, and a little onion. And I air fried some of them. The bigger pieces, like I was showing you, those go in the air fryer really nicely. And so we seasoned them all up. And then we kind of put our veggies on our pizza. We usually do like a hummus first, garlic hummus on our whole wheat flatbread, our hummus, and then our veggies. And I chopped up Brussels sprouts, and the girls love chopped Brussels sprouts on their pizza, and red cabbage. And we got different varieties of olives on there. And then we took those soy curls that I had seasoned with the Italian seasonings and ripped those up and put them on top with some onions. And we all just devoured those pizzas. They're delicious. And you can also use soy curls in, like I said, an Asian dish. So if you want to do like a stir fry, you could season those up and have those ready to go. And then you can make like a Buddha bowl if you want to, or a Thai dish, and you could just put those on top. And you can, yeah, any seasoning, they're just so good. And it seriously only takes like 10 minutes to rehydrate them. You could even just do plain water, drain the water off, and then season them how you want. I just tend to like the bouillon because it does absorb more of that actual flavor into it. And yeah, but they just take on whatever you put. So I love them. And I think they're healthy. I mean, like I said, it's a little bit processed, so it's probably not as good as the actual soybean in its whole form, but it's definitely better than some other things out there that we could be doing, so, or using.
You know, I was, thanks. I should probably give them a try again sometime. Jean, and I was thinking of you, and it's always such a pleasure seeing you in your Italian kitchen. So sometimes we have our blinders on. This show is about Thanksgiving, and we'll talk more about Thanksgiving in a minute. But of course, and our Canadian friends already celebrated Thanksgiving. What was it, like 3 weeks ago or something like that? So maybe 2 weeks ago. So what we're presenting here isn't just for Thanksgiving. I love my lime marinated jerk seitan any time of year, but what we're doing, I think, are really nice for Thanksgiving. But Jean, I was going to ask you about caramelizing, because that's something a lot of us like to do, but some of our audience may not know what caramelizing means. Maybe you could talk about that. And also, could you share, obviously Italy is, if known for nothing else, it's certainly known for its amazing food. When my family visited some years ago, you know, we thought we knew pasta, and you go there and we say, we're vegan. Oh, so much of this pasta has no egg in it. It's so easy. And the spaghetti was amazing there. So can you talk a little bit about not just caramelizing, but also about how you would describe this show for your friends who in Italy may not be celebrating Thanksgiving?
Oh, the particularly this episode, you mean, Dilip? Okay. Okay, so let me go back to the first question, caramelizing. Basically caramelizing, when you roast vegetables in the oven at a high temperature, the sugars start browning. Basically, they start heating up and burning a bit. And that process, I see light in my glasses, and that process of burning the sugars is actually creating a wonderful coat around the vegetable that's being roasted at a high temperature in the oven, and it makes it even sweeter and brings out these really earthy and sweet and wonderful flavors in whatever vegetable you're roasting. And it works particularly well with squashes, but you can also do it with fennel or tomatoes,
onions and garlic.
Onions, yes. Onions, garlic, very, very much. And Brussels sprouts, they brown and get a beautiful flavor to them. So I highly recommend, if anybody is afraid of oven roasting vegetables, it's really easy. You basically have to cut your veggies to equal sizes. And if you aren't zero oil, you can put just a tiny bit of olive oil and toss your veggies in it. And then make sure it's really little, because the idea of oven roasting is using dry heat, and you don't want your vegetables steaming in the oil or frying in the oil. It just needs to very slightly coat. And you can even skip it. If you're a no oil person, you can skip that and use a little bit of vegetable broth or a little bit of water even to moisten the veggies and put them in the oven at usually about 400 degrees. But if you cut your vegetables really small size, you can also bring the heat up a little more so they roast quicker, and the outside will get the caramelized, the colors, and then the inside will be moist and succulent still and delicious. And for Thanksgiving, now I've been living in Italy since 2009. 9 must be a magic number because I moved to the US in 1979 and I moved to Italy in 2009. And in between, I moved to Holland in 1999. So there's something magic about 9. So since I moved here, I've been holding Thanksgiving meals for my friends and family. And I must admit, I've been a plant-based person for 3.5 years. So my Thanksgivings have been plant-based only for the last 3.5 years. So yeah, I share, I love this holiday. I mean, a lot of people have mixed feelings, I know, in the US about Thanksgiving, and some people feel it's been the feelings, the real meaning of it has been skewed. But I just take it as a day in the year where I show gratefulness for all we have, even if we forget about the first Thanksgiving and what may have happened in the US between the native indigenous peoples of the United States and the Pilgrims. I just think it's wonderful that we take a day to reflect and be grateful for all we have, and share that gratefulness with our loved ones. And when I invite my neighbors over and I make the mashed potatoes, just like Suzanne said, without butter, it still tastes wonderful. And I have a lot of roasted vegetables, and I have mushroom gravy, and I do make cranberry jelly. I make a killer stuffing with chestnuts and onions and bread, and I really like that a lot. The good news is in Italy, chestnuts are very much part of the cuisine here, so we use them in a lot of things. And so yeah, for me, it's a day of sharing a wonderful time with people you love, and being grateful for all we have, because despite the troubles in the world and despite COVID and everything, we are still very lucky, and I'm thankful for what we have. And not to mention, we're in lockdown again. We can't even travel to the next town over without a permission paper, and to say why we're traveling. So hopefully all together, we're going to get rid of this COVID monster and go back to a new normal perhaps. But I'm thankful for our show, and I'm thankful for all my colleagues in the show, and I'm thankful for this evening's show. So thank you, Dylan.
Sure, and I'm thankful for each one of you. I think that it's such an honor to be considered a Food for Life instructor. I was joking, I guess, was it you, Cody, earlier, that you guys are going to kick me out of the So Many Cooks in the Kitchen because I demonstrated such an easy recipe today. So sorry about that. But I wanted to reflect on something you said, Jean, and that is a sense of thankfulness, and food is a great way. We live in a very divisive world. You know, we're just getting through an election where half of us are, you know, perhaps very happy, and half of us are very, very upset. And we need to learn in this country and around the world to get together. And I think food is a great way to do that. So I'm sure all of us have so much in common, but I'll bet you if Suzanne and I sat down, we'd find at least one thing we don't agree with, but I can guarantee you we would be smiles, and we would say, I don't agree with your coloring your hair purple, but please pass the potatoes. And I don't agree with your, you know, reading too many math books, but please pass the carrots, or whatever. And so I think food is a great way to diffuse. We're all humans. We're all creatures of the earth. And I think one way we can do our part is by serving fabulous food. And I think as vegans, or those who are moving to plant-based eating, I think we're going one step further, because we're saying, we're offering some food which doesn't have violence in it. We are providing food that, we're eating low on the food chain, and I think we should be happy about that. I wanted to mention one more thing, and then I actually wanted to ask Karen a question about cranberries. The question came in on Facebook. And I wanted to say that I was talking about my Thanksgiving, and I invite everybody, once we're past COVID, to come. We have regulars who fly in from Chicago, from upstate New York, from Florida, couple of people were coming for a few years from Canada. We have a fabulous Thanksgiving. I call it the country's biggest vegetarian Thanksgiving. It's all 100% vegan. I had an idea last year, and directly related, Jean, to what you said, is some people, for them, it's not a happy time if you think of from a Native perspective. And so I reached out. There's a local Native American tribe, and they have a vegan chef. And I had this idea. I said, how about we have a harvest festival like we do our Thanksgiving, but a couple weeks before, and we do it at your digs. So, because they have gatherings, and they love the idea. So this year it's not going to happen. Obviously, I didn't even pursue it, but maybe next year. Isn't that a good idea to meet with a group of natives, a group of Italians, tell us how you cook, a group of Polish people, a group of Hungarians, a group of Indians, and bring us all together. But Karen, you had talked about cranberry, and I was really loving those beautiful colors. And I know there was a question in Facebook about what happened. Somebody had some frozen cranberries and it defrosted, I think accidentally. And then they were wondering, can they refreeze it, and are the cranberries still good? Is there a time period that you can keep cranberries in the freezer?
You can keep them in the freezer from 6 to 12 months. But once something is thawed out, I just, as a general rule, don't put it back in the freezer. Like the cranberries, probably, I don't know, I'd go ahead and eat them. There's probably no bacteria or anything growing on it, like if you thawed out meat and then put it back in, but I just don't.
Just looking at cranberries, they must be just loaded with phytochemicals. And, I'm jealous of you because I look at raw cranberries and I say, hey, this is great. I'd love to cook with them. And I generally don't. So can you give a couple more hints? I'm the kind of cook where I like to get ingredients and I kind of make something up. So because they're so tart, what can people do with cranberries to make magic? Can you share some more magic ideas of cranberries?
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, like with what I just made, it's the dates and then choosing the sweet fruit to go with it. So I did neglect to say that those dates have fiber and vitamins and minerals. So instead of sugar that's depleting your immune system, you've got all those things that help your body use the sugar, and it's actually good for you. But yeah, I like to make muffins. I like the sweet and the tart. You just want to balance the flavor. So as long as you have, and they are really tart, so you do need a few different sweet. Like when I make the muffins, I put a little bit of salt in there. I put dates. I use a date paste and the flour. I make them gluten-free. I use oat flour. Yeah, it's just a matter of balancing. If you were going to put it in a savory dish, you might have something sweet, something the tart cranberries, a little something salty, salt, some herbs, something that's bitter, and something like pungent, like ginger or something. And like you're not going to taste any one of those flavors, but your mouth is going to be happy. Your tongue is going to be happy.
Okay, great. So for those just joining us, we are So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. We're a group of Food for Life instructors, and I'll let somebody else in a minute tell us what is Food for Life. And we have a passion for food, and we're all whole food plant-based, which is like vegan, meaning no animal products, but it's more than vegan. It's eating food as close to the way it was grown. My seitan was a counterexample, but more or less whole food plant-based. And I don't want to speak for all of us, but I'm guessing many of the instructors are primarily whole food plant-based, but 100% vegan. Some of us, the crescent rolls, for example, and my seitan and so forth, we're not always 100% plant-based, but that's a great way to go. And I thought we could end the show going around talking about what we might do for Thanksgiving. But before we do that, let's pause. I know a few of you are watching Facebook. So are there any questions before we start to wrap up?
Dilip, there was one question about an apple pie crust. And I know I do buy one that is vegan, but it does have a little bit of oil in it. Does anyone else have a good quick recipe pie crust that was without oil or lower fat? Or
That's a great question, and maybe somebody can answer it. And before somebody answers it, I just wanted to throw out there that so you've heard the message. We try to avoid added fats, added oils, and I didn't want to stress that too much. The reason we aim for 10% fat calories is because every single study that has shown any kind of reversal, cleaning up of arteries or anything, the reversal goes away at 10%. But I do want to say there are good people out there. There are good nutritionists and researchers who allow for more, 12%, 15, 20%. Brenda Davis, for example, allows for more. And so we do suggest 10% fat calories. But whatever your number is, whether it's if you agree with us 10%, or you say, hey, I'm reading some really good people who are whole food plant-based, but they say 12, 15 is okay. We all have a limit. And so for us, at least, well, for me, vegan is for sure. I'm never going to stray from being vegan. That's really, really important to me. And I try to be whole food plant-based. But the fat is, for me, definitely negotiable. At our Thanksgiving, we always have dishes that are no added fat, but we have plenty of dishes that, we have cookies and pastries at Thanksgiving that go on, and they're all 100% vegan. They're not all whole food plant-based. And we do have whole food plant-based desserts. So the message I'm giving is, at Thanksgiving, at special occasions, you want to go out occasionally for vegan ice cream, cool, literally cool. So don't sweat the fat is what I would suggest. Talk to your healthcare provider. Obviously, if you have heart disease, be very, very careful with fat. But talk to your healthcare provider. And the fat, I suggest an overall average of about 10%. But if you occasionally have higher fat meals and then you have lower fat meals to compensate, I think you're probably fine. But so the question was about pie. So so to that effect, when I make a pie, I'm lazy. I buy an existing pie shell. I look for good vegan shells. But somebody in Facebook, Mila Casey, just said I make oat and date pie crust. So would somebody who has far more experience than I with crust talk about how you make your own crust from scratch, which I don't?
I can. I mean, I do a raw pie with oats and dates. Sometimes I'll add chestnuts. John and I just got a box of Italian chestnuts in the mail. And then if I'm going to eat the pie or serve it right away, you don't even need to bake it. But if you're not going to eat it right away, the oats kind of get a little bit gummy. So I'll just bake it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and that solves that problem.
And I sort of cheat. I don't do a pie crust, but I do a crumble. Therefore, I don't need a crust. I put all the fruit already cut up on the bottom of my dish. And on the top, I make a crumble using oats. Oats and nuts, actually. Oats and walnuts is my preferred way of making it. So oats, nuts, and a little bit of brown sugar and cinnamon. And I sprinkle that over my fruit. So it's sort of like an upside down apple pie without the crust on the bottom. That's my cheat, because I don't know how to make a proper pie crust unless I buy one. And those are not very good with oils and stuff. So if I want to avoid the oils, I do a crumble rather than an apple pie.
And a bit of a good news. So Cody, you don't know this, but Cody mentioned that our kids, we have 5 kids, I guess, so many kids in the kitchen. And the December show is about desserts. And my kiddo already knows, she was talking, just like Janan was talking about an apple crumble or something like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what my daughter does and the other kids as well. Were there other questions on Facebook? I know I saw a little bit, people were really happy to get lots of ideas for different dishes. Suzanne, I think you're watching Facebook, and Karen, did you guys see anything? Yeah.
I don't see any other questions, no. I just want to share something really quick.
Sure, Susanna.
a Misfits box every week, which has vegetables. And look what they sent as a free gift. Suzanne, I'm so excited. It's the Good Karma flax milk. It's like, what are the odds? You were just talking about it, and my husband opened the box and was like, we didn't order this, but it
So
was
funny.
so I'm so excited. I can't wait to Philip, you're gonna have to let me know how your yogurt, because I'd love to try it with this. I'm so excited. So I just wanted to share that real quick.
Oh, that's great. I want to remind folks that in our recipes document, and I apologize, some people were having problems bringing it up. It should work from any computer. If you're using a device, I didn't try it on my iPhone. It's possible it won't work from your iPhone or an iPad, but it should work from any computer. And we've posted it. We can post it again, the link. But we're very lucky because I love Brenda Davis. She's awesome. If anybody gets a chance to read any of her books or see her speak, she's outstanding. So she's so graciously agreed for the last number of shows to put an appendix together. So we're lucky to have Suzanne's recipes. We're lucky to have Susanna's recipes, you know, Cody's, Carolyn's, everybody's, Karen's, Shannon's, Debbie's. I hope you'll all enjoy our recipes. But we have at the end, Brenda has been putting information about nutrition. And this time what she did is she has two handouts, two attachments, two documents. One document is about Thanksgiving itself. What do you do if you're hosting Thanksgiving and you're fully plant-based, or you're primarily plant-based, or you're kind of plant-based and you have guests who aren't? So she has lots of good ideas there. Some of us are plant-based, but we're willing to, you know, cook foods that aren't. That's not me. It was strange. Years ago, I was interviewed on this TV program and they were asking about cooking techniques. They said, and Dilip, can you tell us about cooking like a dead chicken or something? I said, no, I don't know the slightest thing about that. That's not me. You're asking the wrong person. So, so she has, some people do, they're vegan or they're plant-based, but they'll cook other foods. So her document talks about different scenarios. And I encourage you to look at that. And then she wrote a second document, which talks about portion control. So what do you do when you show up at this wonderful vegan Thanksgiving and the food is all 100% vegan like ours, but it's not all low fat? What do you do? And do you dive in? So my daughter likes to brag. She's very small. I'm not concerned about her eating a lot, right? So she talks about our Thanksgiving because for us, it's wonderful going someplace where everything is vegan, right? So she talks about how many seconds and thirds and fourths, and she runs around outside and plays, and she doesn't even ask me. Usually we don't eat sweets at home, or almost not at all. And she asks me, like she made chocolate chip cookies last week, and there's still one left. We're stretching it out. And she'll ask me, Daddy, can I have a chocolate chip cookie? I'll say, well, maybe you can have a half today and we'll have the other half tomorrow. She's just not used to sweets. But at Thanksgiving, she doesn't ask me, nor does she need to. She just goes through the line and enjoys tons of things. So the other document Brenda has shared is how do you manage that? How do you make sure you don't eat too much if that's what you're trying to do? And finally, in my section, she was so kind as she added a little bit about seitan and the nutrition of seitan. So that's all available to you. So I wanted to go around and end the program with each of us sharing about Thanksgiving, but I'll pause one last time and see if I'm getting a message you'll miss Thanksgiving. Stacy Harris, I wonder if you mean the TVS Thanksgiving or just in general. So we do have people from all over. So yeah, Mitzi Craney, sign me up. So keep an eye on our website, Triangle Veg Society. But I wanted, unless there's any other questions, I wanted us to go around and just quickly reflect on what Thanksgiving means to us, what we do. Do we cook? Do we go out? How do we make it a wonderful event? And if any of us wants to share, oh, thanks, Stacy, the TVS, Thanksgiving. We'll miss you too. If anybody wants to share any special things going on in your plant-based life, and I'll start. I'll talk about what I do. I'm just so lucky because we have this wonderful Thanksgiving feast. So I never cook for Thanksgiving. To be honest, I'm a lot busier than if I were cooking because my planning for Thanksgiving starts usually half a year before the event. This year will be easy because we don't have to manage a crowd. I invite everybody to come to our Thanksgiving when it's safe to, maybe next year, if not perhaps the year after. The energy to have 600, 650 people, and you're just kind of squeezing through and seeing people. And last year we had the youngest attendee at our Thanksgiving was, I think, 2 or 3 days old. And I got a picture with a 2 or 3 day old. And I didn't ask, I love babies, I didn't ask, but I was so excited when they said, Dilip, do you want to hold the baby? I said, are you serious? How much do I have to pay you to let me? So one of these days I want to open a nursery school. I love babies. I love young children. And then we had our oldest person was, I think, 92. So that was really cool. So for me, Thanksgiving is just seeing other people happy, surrounded by all this wonderful food. We may disagree about whether you wear your hair purple or you like carrots, but we can gather around food. And the special thing I'll say that I want people to know, and I've been mentioning it for a few months, is I'm still very, very proud of my film Code Blue, and we're showing it many places. If you want, if you can't, come to codebluedoc.com. It's about plant-based eating and how it keeps us healthy. And if you're associated with a group and you want to have a screening, please contact me. You can find us through the Facebook page, and I'd be glad to help the screening happen. Suzanne, tell us what Thanksgiving means to you and anything special you want to share.
So usually we participate in the Detroit Turkey Trot, which is an event downtown that we've been going to for many years since the kids were little. We would spend the night before in downtown Detroit, and over the years we've got to really watch it blossom into this amazing place. And unfortunately this year it's obviously not going to happen. But the other day I woke up and the first thought I had in the morning was that we have to do our own turkey trot. So we haven't quite figured that out yet, but that is going to be our plan with our family. And then have a big, beautiful meal together. Unfortunately, it won't be as with our extended family. I have siblings and nieces and nephews and cousins that we usually all get together. And the good thing is that over the years, my family, me and my husband and my kids are not the only ones that try to be plant-based. Not that both of my kids are, but we have extended family that are. So over the years, all of our sides have become vegan and most of our desserts. And it's not at my home. And so for those that still choose to eat other things, it sort of really provides everything that everybody wants for Thanksgiving. So it's really a great time together. And unfortunately, this year it won't happen, but I guess we'll be grateful for a lot of other things. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Susanna, what does Thanksgiving mean to you? And did you want to share any final thoughts?
Well, Thanksgiving, as you all, said, it means being grateful for what you have, being grateful for your family. Typically, we would travel to Chicago, where my mom, who is 97 and a half, is. And unfortunately, this year we won't be able to do that, but we'll Zoom and get to see her. She watched the show today. She may still be watching. But we will too. We participate in a 5K turkey trot on Thanksgiving morning, and that will be virtual. So we will make sure that we get our running shoes on, and some of us walk, some of us run and do that, and then just come home and have a quiet meal. Hopefully it's been in the 70s here in Southern Indiana, which has been awesome. Hopefully the weather will stay that way, and hopefully my middle son, who lives in Tennessee, and his wife will be able to social distance and share the day together. So it's one of my favorite holidays because it's just about being with people you care about and sharing good food. And it's what could be better than that? So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Karen, what would you share about Thanksgiving and any other final thoughts?
Yeah, so it is about family, and whether it's like traveling to, I've got family all over, either traveling there or having them here. For a while, one of my daughters and I were the only ones that were in Texas. And I just want to share this story to make a point that it doesn't have to be this kind of food. So she lived in a different city in Texas and was coming to Thanksgiving with me. And we were going to do this traditional food, plant-based, but she got off early and was coming into town early enough so that we could pick up dinner at our favorite Ethiopian restaurant before, on the night before Thanksgiving. And she was so excited about that. And we got there, I don't know, it was like before 4 o'clock, but they had closed early for Thanksgiving. And she was so disappointed. And I was like, okay, look, I will make you. The restaurant is Astor's, by the way. It's here. It's wonderful. They make plant-based food. At the time, all the vegetarian dishes had oil, but they've since, now they'll do it oil-free if you ask. But at that time, I said, I will make you Astor's. And we went to 3 different grocery stores to get everything that I needed. And she was just so upset. She could not see what I was doing. She was just like following me around. And then I cooked for about 3 hours the next morning and put it all on the table and told her to come sit down. And she looked at it and she goes, Mom, you made Astor's. And it was better than Astor's. It had no oil and it tasted so good. That had become our traditional Thanksgiving meal. And I don't think that's going to happen this year because I don't think she's going to be able to make it to town. But now I have other relatives in town and we haven't really decided what we're going to eat. But it is about family and sharing good food.
Great. Carolyn, can you share what Thanksgiving means to you and what you're doing for Thanksgiving this year?
Yeah, I think agreeing with everybody else, Thanksgiving is all about family to me, and we always get together with local family members. My mom is nearby, about 45 minutes away. My brother lives a few hours away, so we tend to all get together. You know, normally we'd be going up to my mom's. I'm hoping that we can all gather there again. We're all considering getting coronavirus tests in the day or two before going up there, so that may work. To be able to get together. My son and his fiance have just recovered from coronavirus, so they're probably okay for right now. But the rest of us are thinking about getting tested before we get together. You know, I mean, it's a weird year with a pandemic and trying to, you know, be with family members, especially family members who are alone. You know, we want to be together. So hopefully it doesn't end up becoming a Zoom Thanksgiving, but you know, I mean, we may have to do it. We had a Zoom graduation for my daughter, so we may have to do a Zoom Thanksgiving. I don't know. I'm hoping we can all get together, and we're looking into right now where to get, you know, coronavirus tests, you know, locally, which, I mean, my husband works for the hospital system. We can get coronavirus tests there. Just, so I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing to be celebrating holidays during a pandemic, and you know, while we desperately want to be together, we also want to keep our family members safe and keep them from, you know, getting sick. So and to me, Thanksgiving isn't all about the food, although I love Thanksgiving because it is that one holiday where all the side dishes are basically vegan or easily made vegan. And so you know, I don't consider what I did a side dish. You know, it's a main dish, but I mean, the traditional Thanksgiving side dishes tend to be vegan and or easily made vegan. So, and I've always liked those better anyway than a dried out turkey. So, you know, they're just so, you know, the side dish, sweet potatoes, butternut squash, you know, kale salad. I mean, just all kinds of delicious things that you can have on the side. That makes the meal anyway to me. So yeah, I mean, we're going to try, but just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And well, we'll get together again after Thanksgiving, December 5th, I think, right? For our next one.
Why don't you talk about the next show?
Yeah, I believe it's December 5th. Is that right?
I think
It's
so.
Saturday.
Think
Saturday
so.
again, also
Yep,
2
same
o'clock
time.
Eastern, 1
Yep.
o'clock Central. And
Yep.
we'll be talking about holiday desserts. So that'll be one to tune in for because we're all making desserts. So we always joke about wanting to get together for a potluck after these. We'll all really want to get together for a potluck after that one, like the dessert potluck. That sounds so awesome. So yeah, I've been working on my recipe for that already. Posted a couple pictures on Instagram of stuff I've been practicing. So I'm going to keep practicing. My husband keeps saying, yeah, you just need more practice, because he just wants me to keep making it so he can keep eating them.
I'm happy to be your tester any day, Carolyn.
Exactly. I've been bringing it over to my neighbors and they come back with the empty plate. We're just bringing you back the empty plate because you can do that anytime. Just bring like, yes, I'm thinking I'll make, what was it? Pumpkin pie, cheesecake, pumpkin cheesecake bites. So I've been practicing. We'll see.
And That reminds me too of something in terms of sharing food. We have wonderful neighbors 2 houses down, and I love getting them food. And once the pandemic hit, I stopped doing it. But then I looked at what the CDC had to say, and it's not a disease that's transmitted through food. And so
No,
what
it's
I've
not.
been doing is I'm trying to be very conservative. They have young children; they're being conservative too. And so what I do is I use when I shop. I don't like plastic, but I have some containers that are plastic I get from the store, and so I reuse them and. A number
Right,
of times a week,
right.
I'll send them a text message. I'm dropping stuff off on your porch, and I'll package it in a container and don't return the
Right.
container. So those of you who like sharing, what you're doing, we can still do that. Just be careful. I
Right,
bet you I
right.
don't have to be that conservative about the containers. I could use glass and then put them in my dishwasher because it
Sure,
sterilizes.
sure, absolutely.
But
Yeah, there's
please,
never been a case of, as far as we know, coronavirus being transmitted by food, and it does tend to be very much by the air, and probably increases your chance of getting very sick if you are spending a lot of close proximity time with somebody versus, which is why social distancing is important to, not be breathing that same air as somebody else. So,
I saw
yeah.
something on the news, a researcher from Virginia, and they said that it's like smoking. So it's not
Mm.
just distance. It's if somebody's smoking, 5 feet won't do it. You need to be further away. And if you're outside, you can be a little closer. It was,
Right.
we're probably straying way outside of our level of what we're experts at or we know something about. But I just
Right,
thought I'd
right.
throw that
My
out there.
husband's sitting here.
He
He
knows.
knows.
He knows.
Yeah, he knows a
Let,
lot about it. But
let's move to Janan. Janan, can you share what you'll do for Thanksgiving, and any final thoughts from your point of view?
So this year, Thanksgiving will be rather lonely. It will be just me and my husband because we're in lockdown. We're not allowed to have visitors, and we are not allowed to eat out. Oh, we can't even because restaurants are closed. We even have a nighttime curfew. You can't be out of your house. Anyways, I will still be grateful. Yeah, it will be different. This is probably the first ever since 1979, my first Thanksgiving. That will be only 2 people celebrating, sharing a nice meal and being thankful. I probably at a certain time, I'll call my daughter on Messenger and have a face-to-face chat with her. She will most likely be visiting her grandma who lives just up the road. They've sort of been keeping a bubble, visiting each other. And I wish the technology for beaming up was here so I could beam myself and go visit them and be with them for Thanksgiving, but so be it. This year, a tiny Thanksgiving, counting our blessings that we are on our 2 feet and celebrating and have something to be grateful about. And I will practice my dessert. I can give a hint. I will be making something with chocolates and chestnuts for our Christmas show. So
Great. And I promise Janan, for all her friends who are in the European time zone, that we'll get you on much earlier next time. And I think
Thanksgiving, everybody.
And I think Cody, you're the last one who hasn't gone. Am I right? Did we forget anybody? So Cody, how?
I think
So yeah, it's just gonna be myself and the 3 girls and my husband. We typically would go to my in-laws who live in our same neighborhood, but we're just decided we better just do our own families. It's on the rise big time here in Omaha. So we're just gonna settle down, just make lots of great food. And as you know, the girls like to cook whole food, plant-based. So we're gonna be whipping up a lot of really great food and treats. And they had so much fun making the Halloween treats that were vegan and whipping up their own little recipes or tweaking other ones. And so, yeah, we're just gonna enjoy some great food, great company, probably just cuddle up and watch a good show together. So yeah, I'm excited just to have some cuddle time with the girls and enjoy my little family. So happy Thanksgiving, you guys. And you guys, I feel like you guys are kind of another family to me. So
Absolutely.
it really helped to have this group during the whole pandemic. So I really want to tell you that I'm grateful for each and every one of you. So even whether if you're on the show today or not, I mean, I am thankful for you guys. You guys are awesome. I feel like you're my sisters and brothers. So
Ditto.
same.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for all of you.
Absolutely. So with that, just a reminder, our next show is December 5th, and it's about holiday desserts. And then we haven't finalized it, but watch any day now. We should have our January. It looks like it's going to be soups and stews. And February is probably going to be something about healthy heart. We haven't finalized that either. I think we have dates, but that should be out there soon. Also, I want to remind you, you can always watch the shows here. So if you like what you saw, tell your friends. These videos will be there forever, essentially. And then over time, they get edited and put on Plant-Based Network, and you can find the links here as well. So thanks for being with us. Please continue sending questions. If we can help you in any way with your interest in plant-based eating, whole food plant-based eating, you have a bunch of us here who are anxious to share. So see you in December, and have a happy Thanksgiving if you're celebrating.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Bye, everybody.